Yeah, dear friends, lovers of freedom, wherever you are in this world, um, compliments of the new week. Today is Sunday, the 11th of September 2022, and we are in another week of expectations and of great things that are going to be making the rounds and making the news, both the negative and the positive. But for Biafrans, it's going to be positive all around in the name of Yahushua Hamashiach. I want to welcome you to this live broadcast today. And it's important because I needed to discuss something very critical today. Very, very, very important. We have been having so much arguments and so many, divisions within us about the concept of DOS under IPOB, and of course the issue of command and control. This is a particular issue that has actually defied, lots of, platforms and abilities to explain, and it has become imperative that we begin to analyze this kind of things, very constructively and in the realm of knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, so that we can become effective in what we are doing. One foolish thing that can happen to anybody in life is to argue blindly, because it exposes your level of understanding or your intelligence quotient. It exposes how intelligent you are and how non-intelligent or not intelligent you are. That's why whenever you want to argue a matter, when it comes to critical things like freedom fighting or things that are very key to life, you must be well equipped with, information to push your knowledge. Well, I started this broadcast with the video of Mazen Namdekano in court in June. Of course, we saw that scene there where, try to refresh our minds that this is the week in which the court session will be holding, regarding our leader, and of course to determine his bail conditions and other things. Of course, whether the court has jurisdiction to try him and other things. Of course, we know that our leader is going to receive the grace from Elohim, and whatever the enemies have designed for themselves will not come to near him. The truth here is that they can't do anything to him. They know that. And they know that he is very significant in the lives of the nation, in the lives of Biafrans and the nation of Biafra. And so just to remind us, I had to play that initial clip so that we can be reminded that this is the week of our leader going to court. That is on Tuesday, 13th of September 2022. And then, of course, we have said it that there's going to be a total lockdown of Biafra land on the 12th, that is tomorrow, and on Tuesday, 13th. And so this is a reminder to you, wherever you are, to know that it is now time for us, to actually prepare our minds for another lockdown. And as we prepare for the main lockdown, which will be coming up as soon as possible. Of course, the lockdown that is going to actually close the issues of the seal up the issues of, you know, the elections, because we have said it that election will not hold in Biafra land. So definitely, certainly, we have already declared this, and then we are going to, implement. Now, remember, election, the sit at home that we are experiencing right now is a preparation. Is in preparation to the massive sit at home that is going to hold during that period of elections. Lots of things are going to be happening before then, of course, and if we just believe and hope that those things that will be happening will make us get our freedom, before even that election period. We know that we're going to go, very far with our actions. Lots of things are going to be going on. They are going on already, and of course, we know that the autopilot mood is well activated and well enforced, and so and well enforced too. Yes, through the spokesperson of Biafra, Mazisa Manepa, and every autopilot individual, everyone who has been autopiloted, because of course the explanation about autopilot yesterday from the explanation of our leader's wife were just the way she wanted to define it. But I don't want to go into that, because I would have given us much details of what autopilot actually means and relating to what she tried to explain in that meeting. Of course, the meeting was an informal one. It was not a meeting under Biafra IPOB anyways, under IPOB Biafra, formal corporate IPOB Biafra. They held a meeting as Biafrans and members of Biafra. Of course, they are also indigenous people of Biafra, but they don't hold any strategic, hold to the decision that we make, because they have actually lost out in the concept of being relevant, based on the fact that they have actually sold out and they have done lots of things, to actually endanger the life of our leader. If you look behind me, you'll see the chains on the hands of our leader, to remind us that we are actually obliged, and it's our mission and our responsibility and our duty to make sure that those chains that we see on the hands of our leader, it's removed, and removed immediately. You cannot achieve that through the courts, because the courts are the courts of your enemies. Your enemies cannot grant you justice in their own court. If they could spend millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars, which we have intel that most of these people who were actually serving as officers in the DOS, Directorate of State, under IPOB, who have been sacked by the people, actually had a hand in, making sure that our leader was captured, and they actually made a fortune from the corruption, also dipping their hands into the blood of those Biafrans who have lost. They actually, were part of those who gained from the monies, and then that money is what has caused that chain on our leader. And of course, we are going to break that chain. Everything we're doing under the auspices of autopilot is to break that chain. And as soon as that chain is broken, our freedom will be declared. And that is what we have come to do. Now, today, I'm going to be looking fully at the issue of DOS, the issue of IPOB, the issue of command and control. These things are very fundamental. And except we begin to have a better understanding about these things, we might keep arguing. And you see the enemies capitalizing on this to actually want to deceive and to manipulate and to make sure that they keep deceiving our people who are not well schooled or who are not knowledgeable about these facts and these things very well. That's why the need for this explanation is very, very paramount, and that's why I've come out to do justice to this. I pray that I will be able to utilize the time I have to explain this. But first of all, I want to talk about IPOB. Of course, we all know that IPOB means indigenous people of Biafra. And of course, you know what indigenous means. That means you are part of it. You are a bona fide member of it, And so it's an indigenous people. Of course, you know what people are. Talking about every one of us. We are all the people, And so indigenous people of who? Biafra. Of course, it's possible also to have indigenous people of Oduduwa, indigenous people of Hausa nation, indigenous people of the Hausas, or the indigenous people of Ijo, indigenous people of Benue, indigenous people of Sokoto, indigenous people of, yes, it's possible to have that anyways. And that is why you must understand the concept of indigenous people of Biafra in the literal form of it. Because when you talk about a group of people coming together under a nation, that nation makes or gives them makes or defines their entity. So, which means that when it comes to Biafra, when you say indigenous people of Biafra, you're actually talking about the entity of the people. Of course, an organization is an entity. You know, an organization can be a company, can be a corporation, can be, you know, an institution, can be, you know, any group of people, one or two or more people coming together to constitute a forum, or also being governed by a particular purpose, a mutual purpose that drives them and that they will mutually benefit from. So when we say indigenous people of Biafra, we are talking about everyone who is a Biafran. So first, we want to understand, before we begin to go into the explanation of DOS, let's first understand what indigenous people of Biafra mean. Now, when you are born into Biafra nation, from Biafra parents or by Biafran parents, or you are a citizen by naturalization or by any other means, you automatically are an indigenous person. You understand? But now let's look at it in the context of being born into it. That means your parents, your grandparents, and whatever, you are linked to the person who is actually a Biafran. Now, when you are born into Biafra, or you are a citizen of Biafra, it simply means that you automatically are a Biafran. You don't need to be an oath, you don't need to swear an oath to be a Biafran. As much as your parents and all of that, any other means that makes you a Biafran, as much as that is possible, that means you have become, even when you want to come to be a Biafran, maybe by naturalization or any other means, you will of course come to swear some oath in the courts. And if you are born into it, you are a Biafran by blood, by blood connection. That means the oath is sealed with your blood. So being a bona fide citizen of Biafra does not need you an extra oath. As much as you are a Biafran, you are a Biafran. So which means that anybody who is a Biafran, born by Biafran parents, or however they became Biafrans, that is legal and that is critical of right process and right procedure, is a Biafran. So which means that when we say indigenous people of Biafra, we are talking about anyone who is a Biafran. You don't need to be an oath member. What you mean by oath member, by what they say you come and swear an oath? No. As much as you are born into it or legally constituted by it and all of that, you are a Biafran. So that's settled. Just like you can be, Oduduwa, as much as your parents are from there, you can say indigenous people of Oduduwa. It's still the same. It doesn't mean a separate organization. It simply means talking about the people who are from that region, or who are from that tradition, culture, or that nation. And of course, you know that nation is a group of people that are bound together by a common tie. And what is a common tie? That is talking about religion, talking about culture, talking about tradition, talking about whatever that binds them, whether language or whatever, gives them that nationhood. So anyone who is a Biafran is automatically, an indigenous person of Biafra. That's settled. But now we're going to be looking at another aspect of indigenous people of Biafra. Now remember, we have talked about the natural side of it, which is you are a Biafran because you are born a Biafran, or because you maybe through legal means you have become a Biafran. So it is natural. Nothing changes it. Nothing can remove that from you. Nothing can take that from you. But now we will have to be looking at now we want to look at the other side of the entity, which becomes an organization. Of course, the word organization is a noun, which stipulates an entity, made up of one or more people coming together and for a common purpose. Now, Biafra is on two platforms, or has a two connection to one point. Every Biafran is a citizen of Biafra, but every Biafran cannot be a citizen that is acknowledged by not just birth, but by the process of action they take. Now, let me explain this. Now, as much as you are a Biafran, you also have a responsibility to Biafra, which means that to be a Biafran, you have to be connected to what Biafra represents. As soon as you disconnect from what Biafra represents, you have defeated the purpose of being a Biafran. It's just like an organization. When you belong to an organization, you must keep to the principles and the dictates or the purpose of that organization. That particular purpose, you must keep to it. Now, but when you begin to go against that purpose of that organization, you have already determined to become a danger. You are already prejudicing that purpose. You are already jeopardizing the collective objective of that organization. So we can still question your behavior even if you are a Biafran. So you see it. So now we have explained that. Now, being a Biafran doesn't mean that we can always allow some things to happen or some stupid actions to be taken, which means that we have to deal with things that will help us to maintain law and order. Now, that being said, I will explain that better later. Now, look at it now. Two sides of it. One point, one central point, but two ways to that central point. Biafra, indigenous people of Biafra, is a nation. You don't need to be, you don't need any other thing to make you a Biafran, whether they call you to come and read one paper or to come and swear one oath. You don't need that to be a Biafran. You are a Biafran. You are an indigenous person of Biafra. Now, but we have the corporate side. Now, the reason why the corporate side of Biafra came to be, which Mazin Nnamdi Kanu instituted, based on the principles or the purpose of the fundamental nation of Biafra, is because the fundamental nature of Biafra is in subjugation, is restricted from expressing its full nationhood because it has been engrafted into a contraption called Nigeria. It is restricted and cannot function as a nation. The only way you can actually tell how effective a nation is when it is free to function. But Biafra nation, since 1970, after it was reignited or revitalized in 1967, and then the Nigeria state came against us and the colonial masters, using the Nigeria state to come against us to make sure that they keep us down. The reason why we couldn't express fully our nationhood and to function as a nation of people was because we have been restricted by forces that negate our nationhood. So now, to be able to get a voice as a nation, there is need to create a legal platform or a legal process or a legal format, an organization that is also an entity, that is also a person, a corporate person, just like the persons that make up the indigenous people of Biafra. So to create this now, to be able to achieve this now as a means of being able to penetrate international community, as a means of being able to sue and be sued, as a means of being able to get back our ability to function as a nation or as indigenous people of Biafra, as a means of being able to get our acts together and make sure that we control our nation. The corporate side of the indigenous people of Biafra was composed, which comprises of everyone who is a Biafran. So the Biafra people were now given a corporate image. That was why indigenous people of Biafra was registered as a corporate organization. So you see, it does not make IPOB different from the people. It only gives us a legal backing to be able to take actions that will help us restore that our nation that could function effectively as a nation. So to achieve that, the corporate image was instituted to give a face to the world and to use as a means of clamoring to get back our sovereignty. I hope you get that. Now, of course, in all of these now, I want to relate them. I want to bring them to, because I'm going to be talking about DOS, because where I'm going now is DOS, and then also talking about command and control so that you can understand the concept of command and control. Now, the nation of Biafra has cultures, traditions, and other things that make us unique. Just like Oduduwa have their cultural tradition, just like the Hausas have their cultural tradition, just like every other, other place. The nation Biafra, and of course the communities, each community have their way of, their tradition and all of that. This make them an entity with a common purpose, pursuing a particular and following a particular command. Now, what command means is that collective culture, nature, expectation, that laid down principle, that laid down pattern that expresses our nature as a people, which grants us mutual regard, respect, benefits. Regard, respect, benefits. What makes injustice? Regard, respect, benefits, and justice. Now, the culture of Biafra is what makes justice available for all. The culture of Biafra is what makes respect available for all. The culture of Biafra is what makes regard available for all. The culture of Biafra is what makes our collective purpose and expresses our collective purpose in the face of international platform. So which means that when we go to the international community, we can be noticed by our culture, tradition, and all of that. That is our point of command. Now, the rules and the regulations that govern the actions of the people, which of course, in the community, they tell you, you don't have to do this. If you do this, this will be the repercussion and all of that. Those rules and all of that is what is called command. For instance, when you go to a country like the US, the people came together to compose a constitution. That constitution becomes the command. The word command is the action word or the verb of the word commandment. So when you talk about commandment, you are talking about stipulated rules or laws that govern a particular people or a particular organization or a group of people. So the nation of Biafra itself as a nation now, talking about the people, let's first of all keep aside the corporate side. Now we're going to come to the corporate side because that is where we have the DOS and other stuff. Now, the nation of Biafra had, as a nation now, has these rules, and these rules is the command that guides the people. The Igwes, the traditional rulers, the heads of households, the firstborn, the house, the seniority, just like the pattern we use in governing and the processes of our republican nature as Biafrans, they are the group of people who execute these commands in the land or in the nation of Biafra. So when you have an issue, for instance, in your household, what you do is you take it to, maybe the traditional ruler, or maybe you take it to the household, and then the elders will sit down to analyze it. What makes the elders sit down to analyze is because there is a command of authority. There is a command, which is the commandment. There is a central command. There is a command. And that command involves principles, rules, culture, and all of that make up the command. The Igwes and the traditional rulers and the elders will only judge the matter by the command. That is what is called control. So they are instruments of executing or enforcing the command. They are not the command. They are forces to execute the command. But the Igwe, or the central commandant, let me call him now the commandant, who represents the nation, carries the authority of the command. So he is the command. That is why, if you look at the Babylonian Empire, you discover that if you read very well, you'll see that there's a difference between the way Babylonian Empire operated and the way the Medi-Persian Empire operated until you get to the Grecian Empire. This now watered down the power of the monarch. The Babylonian Empire, which was headed by Nebuchadnezzar in the Bible, had a supreme, his words become law. His words were law. But the Persian king didn't have his words become automatic law. His words become law, but his seal and his actions cannot be changed and whatever, based on the fact that he has already altered it previously. So, but Nebuchadnezzar was a supreme being. If he says something right now, he has the power to make another law by what he says again. It becomes a supreme one. That means he is the command, and he is an epitome of the commandment of the nation or the empire. Did you get it? Now, if you look at it, you discover that when Daniel, had an issue, they told the king, they said, but these are the things you have already said, and it is sealed by you, so you cannot change it. But in the case of Nebuchadnezzar could say what he wants to say, and it suddenly become a law. So he is the seal of authority and everything. He was maximum. Now, the same way also, when it comes to the point of, when it comes to Biafra now, the authority or the nation itself resides in the head, in the number one person in Biafra land. And then that person, or in that community, that person epitomizes the commandment. And then the Igwes and other people, the other people, the elders and all of that, in their own level, their own levels, which are called tissues, because tissues are about the levels that make up the organ. Now remember, we're talking about the nation. The nation, another word you can use for the nation is an organ. I'm trying to use the analogy of our leader's wife to explain some stuff to Biafra, so that we need to understand basically where she's coming from and how much she was able to say to her level of knowledge and all of that, and then explain further so that you can understand better and what she actually couldn't understand even when she was using a right analogy for it. She was explaining, but she couldn't explain better. Now, as a nation, you are an organ, because you are made up of tissues that are alive by formation of cells. Now, What is a cell? A cell, of course, a cell is let me explain it now. And then let's leave biology here. Let's look at it now, because cells, of course, they are a collection of chromosomes that make up the tissue. Of course, if you want to go to biology, so which means that if you're going to talk about tissues, you cannot talk about tissues without talking about cells. So you talk about cells before you talk about tissues. So when you talk about mitosis, you talk about the cycle of a cell, and replicating, actually produce new nuclei, which composes and becomes, they begin to form and of course become the tissue. And then from the tissues, the tissues now make up the organ, which is the total function now. The nation of Biafra is the total function of the tissues that make up Biafra, or that make up the organ or the organization. That's why they're called organisms. They are a full composition of the tissues in an order or in a collective form of purpose and a collective form of direction and all of that, composed in a collective form of achieving same result by mutual collection or by mutual activities that produces same function or achieve a particular motive or a particular cause. So now the nation of Biafra is an organ. We Biafrans, every Biafran is a cell. Every institution, like the youth forum, the Umuada forum, the young girls forum, the the elders forum, all these forum are tissues made up of Biafrans who are the cells. So when cells come together, they form tissues. Each of this level of leadership, or wherever Biafrans belong in the whole organ or in the organ, which is Biafra. Each of these, like those ones who are, let's say traditional rulers, those ones who are elders, those ones who are whatever position you occupy, is a tissue. You are the cell in that tissue. So now, having explained that now, we will now come to how cells can, this symbiotic process takes place, and then these cells now begin to break down and compose and begin to divide and then replicate and then begin to form more cells. Now remember, when the body, if you look at the human body, the cells of the human body are attacked when disease goes into them. The cells of the body, the white blood cells and all of that, they always want to fight back foreign things coming into the body, which of course make us sick. Biafra as a nation, as an organ, was attacked in 1967. The organ of Biafra was attacked. Now remember, it's just like you now, you that is standing there as a person, you're an organ, having several tissues in your body made up of cells. Because you are a total component that functions for a particular cause and particular purpose. So you're an organ, but you have tissues all around inside of you that are made up of cells. When Biafra was attacked, the whole of Biafra was attacked. When the whole of Biafra was attacked, what happened? The cells were, how would we say that the whole of Biafra was attacked? Because each cell was being attacked. When they were shooting cells. That means individuals that make up Biafra. They were shooting us, killing us one after the other. We lost over 5 million Biafrans. Until now, we have lost over 6 million Biafrans, 6 million cells. The war was the sickness, the foreign thing that came into our nation or into the organ Biafra or the organization Biafra as a whole. The war was the sickness, the disease that attacked the cells. It came in. How do you know? How do you destroy an organ? You destroy it by penetrating the cells. That means penetrating the people that make up that organ. For instance, if you want to destroy an organization, a company, you destroy it. If you want to take over an organization now, for instance, if you want to destroy it also, you plague the people who make up that organization. Whether you dupe them or you do something to render them bankrupt and all of that. As soon as you do that, that organization crumbles, or if it cannot stand it, if it's too heavy for it, it crumbles it, or it can fight it if it is able to fight and discover some stuff and make it up later. But there is this attack. That attack always comes to the cells. The whole of Biafra land is the organ, but cannot be attacked. It is the people in Biafra land that are attacked. So it is the cells that were attacked. So during the war, the cells were attacked. But during the war also, as cells were being attacked, some other cells were replicating. That was when Mazi Nnamdi Kanu was born, and he was born, and when cells have been replicated, and we begin to have them, of course, as they get replicated, new nuclei are formed and all of that, and then they begin to form, and of course, when the mitosis takes place, and the replication of chromosomes and all of that, and forming, the new nuclei and all of that, and then these nuclei also begin to compose and begin to get themselves attached to the tissues which actually they function in, or they should function in, and all of that. That is how each person, in Biafra land, both the ones that were being killed, as they were being killed, more were being born, more were dying. The cells were dying, just like when sickness comes into your body, or let's say HIV gets into somebody's body now, it begins to attack the cells. But as it kills the cells, the other ones are fighting it. The other ones are trying to survive. So when somebody is given HIV vaccine, these things are injected into the body of the person using the cells, composed of the cells, and then it helps to produce more cells faster, replicate more cells than what the HIV is killing, so that you'll be able to get sustained. That was how Biafrans, most of us who went, on most of those who were in exile, and most of those who had survived the attack or the Biafra war, were able to replicate, and then new nuclei were formed. And then these nuclei began to form tissues. Suddenly, Mazi Nnamdi came to a point where his maturation, as during the process of the mitosis, came to the point where he now was able to compose to become a tissue that helped, or that is helping to make sure that the nation, the organ, survives. Now let's come to it. Like I explained initially, I said the nation of Biafra as a nation is the command. Is the organ. Now, the person who heads Biafra, whether appointed or by monarchical process, who heads Biafra is the command. Remember, I told you that command is the action, or the action for the word, which is a noun, which is commandment. The word commandment is a noun. The word command is an action. So when you talk about command, you are actually talking about that rule, those principles, those cultures, those traditions, those things that actually guide the people and make them focus on a particular course of purpose. Everything that puts us in check is the command under the law of Biafra, under the nation of Biafra. Now, those people who are made to execute, or who are meant to execute these commands, are the people who are called the control units, to exuding or using the command as instituted by the people. Now let's now move to the issue of IPOB as a corporate body. Remember, I told you that IPOB is already under the Nigeria government, which the British has constituted. So IPOB cannot function as a state, cannot be sovereign, cannot function. IPOB means Indigenous People of Biafra. Don't always confuse it. When you hear IPOB, you think it's an organization alone. No, it is the people themselves. So IPOB now is under the subjugation of the British construct called Nigeria, or is under slavery, or is under bondage, is restricted, cannot function as a state, cannot function as a nation, is stopped, cannot be sovereign, because it is under pressure, it is restricted and being corruptly abused and all of that. It is in a state where it's like we don't know our left to right. But now IPOB itself now creates a body that represents the people, which still has the name of the people, that is indigenous people of Biafra, and creates it to form an organization, which is also an organ, but in a corporate form. That means in this regard now, for us to have the ability to sue or to pursue a cause or to draft an agenda, that actually has a root in the command of the nation of Biafra, we now need this organization called IPOB, registered as a corporate person, so that we can utilize it as a means of chasing for our freedom. That is what happened. So IPOB as a people or as an organization or as an organ or as a nation now institutes the corporate side of IPOB. That is where the need, that is where the fight for freedom. I hope you can hear me. It seems the network and signal is poor. In case you can still hear me. Now, I is still the people, but the people have made or designed a concept that will help them project what they want, to get back their sovereignty, to get back their freedom, to get back what they represent. So for it to be easy, for it to make it easy for IPOB or the indigenous people of Biafra to actually fight for their freedom, there is a need to constitute the IPOB corporate side or the corporate image of the people. Because in that regard, you can speak to the international community, you can write a letter and discuss as an institution or as an organization, you can talk to international communities, you can talk to people. That was why the corporate side of IPOB was composed. Now, this corporate side of IPOB that is composed now has its ideology that is embedded in the principles of the nation Biafra. The ideology here now is strictly to free the nation and bring it back to its purpose or to its ground of sovereignty. So, which means that in the concept of fighting for freedom, the ideology here now becomes a concept of force, or utilizing any means according to international standards and according to the Charter of the United Nations, utilizing those means to get our freedom. So in the context of these things, they now form the ideology of the corporate side of IPOB. Now, this corporate side of IPOB now, that ideology, that principle, that thing, which of course makes it derive its power to chase for freedom or to pursue freedom or to go after freedom, is what is called the command. And this command is actually emanating from a tissue that composed that command. Just like in the nation of Biafra now, I said it, that the person who heads the Biafra, for instance, if we have our nation now, or let's say the United States now, for instance, the president of the United States, what's his name now? I've forgotten his name. Whatever his name is, I can't remember now. It's funny that I forgot his name. The president of the United States now is the command or the epitome of the command. That means he is the Constitution. His office represents the Constitution. So if you want to talk about the Constitution, you're going to talk about the office of the president, or you're going to talk about the White House. White House represents the Constitution of the United States. President Biden, sorry. White House represents the Constitution of the United States. So White House is the command point for the United States. That is what Mazi Nnamdi Kanu became. As soon as he became a tissue that is vital to the restoration of Biafra. So he now became the command. Just like the president sitting in White House, sitting that chair in White House, that represents the command. So command is a word that comes from the word commandment. Commandment simply means rules, laws, regulations, stipulated rules and regulations and all of that, and laws that guide or that discern the path of that particular organization or a group of people. So now the corporate side of IPOB which is meant to restore the nation of Biafra, which is the indigenous people of Biafra, also registered as indigenous people of Biafra on the corporate side, represents the organ. Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, who instituted this corporate side of the indigenous people of Biafra, which is also the nation of Biafra, or the people of the indigenous or the indigenous people of Biafra, becomes the central point, just like White House is in the United States. Under the corporate side now, White House, under the corporate side now, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu is the DOS, which like can be said for the United States as the White House. Just like what White House is to United States, is the same way the DOS is to Biafra in the corporate angle. The DOS is not part of the natural IPOB, which is the indigenous people of Biafra or the nation. It is part of the corporate side that is instituted to restore the full organ or the full nation. So the DOS, Directorate of State, is the White House of the corporate side of Biafra. And the person who sits in White House representing the Constitution and as a symbol of the Constitution, that is why they give him the respect, that is why they give him the regard, that is why they make sure that they protect him. His Air Force One is always one in town. You see the military going, when he's going anywhere, if you see the United States President, Joe Biden, wherever he's going, or any president that is in the United States, whoever it is, once he's going out, you will see the military might of the nation going with him. You know why? Because he epitomizes the command. That White House, you see, he is the representation of White House. That is how the DOS is. Now, who is this person in the DOS that represents that institution or that represents that power of that nation, Biafra? That is Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. So Mazi Nnamdi Kanu is the DOS, just like for now, until his term is through, Joe Biden is the United States of America. When you talk about United States of America, you look at the president because he represents the United States of America. So Mazi Nnamdi Kanu is the DOS. So when you talk about the DOS, you'll be talking about Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. So he is epitomizing the command. He is epitomizing the command. That is what you have to understand what command means. Command is the verb or the action for the noun commandment. So Mazi Nnamdi Kanu is the command. Now remember, if you go to the White House, there are lots of people working in the White House, right? But you will not put responsibility on any of them when anything happens to the nation. You discovered that when Trump was there were lots of people who were working with him. But when the issue of the riots and all of that came about, everybody's focus was on Trump because he is the representation of power. Trump could sack anybody and employ anybody because he is epitomizing the United States and representing the Constitution of the United States. So when you talk about the United States, you're going to refer to Trump because he's sitting in the White House, which is like the DOS in IPOB, the corporate side of IPOB. So Mazi Nnamdi Kanu now, being the DOS, is the DOS. Now, when he said that I am DOS and DOS is me, he was actually talking about being the central point or representing the command for the principles to freedom. Remember, IPOB has the natural side, which every one of us belong to. And then we have the corporate side, which every one of us belong to. But in the corporate side now, it is designed to create a system or a structural process that will free us to maximize our natural place, our natural side, which is maximizing our sovereignty as a nation. Remember, the natural side of IPOB is still in bondage, subjugation, held bound. The corporate side is an effective platform to utilize as a means of restoring the natural side back to its sovereignty. Because if we don't energize the corporate side, which is still a representation of the natural side, or which also has the facilities or the faculty of the natural side, if we don't initiate it, we will not be in a position to be able to fight to restore the sovereign natural side of Biafra. That is why IPOB, the corporate side of IPOB, was composed. Anywhere you look at it, IPOB represents indigenous people of Biafra. It does not represent a group of people who are working in the corporate side. When Muhammad Abbas and co were employed to work in the corporate side, they were officers, just like when you are working. Now, they were employed into the DOS, right? Now, as I explained, I said the United States president, who is an epitome of the command, employs people or appoints people through the processes. Of course, there are processes of appointments. Of course, they go through lots of processes. Now, through the processes, he appoints people to work in the White House under his command. What these people do is that they enforce the command. That's why when the legislature made the law and all of that, you see that there are people who enforce them. In the executive arm, there are people whose offices are meant to make sure that every angle of operation and execution is rightly applied and rightly carried out and rightly achieved. And then they document and they take responsibility and they send the details and everything. So when they miss the point, the head is held responsible, which means that the head must be in line with the principles, because the principles don't change, because the principles is natural with the people. The principles represents the sovereignty of the people. The principles represent the total makeup of the people. So anybody who sits on that seat that is represented or that can be likened like the word DOS, or maybe like, say, like the president of the United States, president. When you talk about DOS, you talk about the president. So now the president is the president of the United States, and he takes responsibility for every action of all officers in that stuff. So now when it comes to the DOS, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu is responsible for the command. What these people who work in that office are meant to do is to execute the command. That is what is called control. When command is being executed, it is another way called control. Because what happens is this: the command itself becomes the guiding pattern to which the execution takes place. So the executives, or those who work under the office of the DOS, are supposed to go by the command, which they have no hand in. The command has nothing to do with them. What they have to do, what has to do with them, is the control. What does the control mean? They now will have to execute and make sure that every action or every word or every law of the command is executed. So when these sacked people of DOS refused to listen to Mazi Nnamdi Kanu when he said that Simon Ekpa should be given a platform or given a slot on Radio Biafra, they actually disobeyed command. And there was no control. Because by disobeying command, you are not applying control. Control simply means that to make things work well, the command must be instituted. So the command is the guiding factor to the control. So if there's no command, you cannot be talking about control, because everything will seem to be right. It's just like when you say when there's no law, there's no transgression. When I'm going to do a thing now, for instance, if I belong to a group, if I do anything that concerns me or that I feel that is right for me, you cannot tell me that I have faulted. The only way you can tell me that I've faulted is to prove it by the rules. if what I do goes against the rules, naturally I have faulted. And you can now penalize me based on the fact that I faulted because I've gone against the rules. Now, because these ones who are supposed to execute the rules of the command didn't execute it, they faulted in their ability to set a pace for control. So they despised the command. That means they despised Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. To understand command, you must look at the United States, the office, or you must look at the United Kingdom, or you look at any other country that has a central position. Every president of a nation is the command point for that nation, guided by the Constitution. Remember, what is our Constitution as Biafra? Our Constitution is stipulated in the ideology of Biafra, which is found in the culture, the tradition, the manner of operation, the way we operate, and everything we do, culture, tradition. Culture and tradition sets the basis, or is the ideology for every command of every nation. So when it comes to Biafra, the culture and tradition is the command. Now listen to this. Score this. No command exists without the agreement of the people. Before a constitution is composed, there is a referendum. Before the constitution is agreed on or ratified by the president, there's a referendum. The people must agree if they want this constitution to hold. The same way also, those constitutions are composed based on the lifestyle, the culture of the people, or the traditions of the people. Every country's constitution is composed by the traditions of the people. That was how Mazi Nnamdi Kanu was able to have a constitution or a command template that is personalized by him under the corporate side of IPOB for the purpose of liberation. Those commands were made up of the ideology of our culture. That is why when you come to everything he did, what fundamentally he did was this: to make sure that he taught the people. In the place of the teaching, he was able to reignite in the people or reinform the people about who they are. The only way you can get the people to support the command is to get them orientated and taught. So Mazi Nnamdi Kanu took time, years, to teach the people, to teach every one of us who we are, our traditions, our culture, and those things that negate our traditions and culture. That is how we were able to realize that the British had been a problem to us. That is how we were able to realize that we're not supposed to be in the constructs called Nigeria. That is how we're able to realize that we're not supposed to be in the system called Nigeria. That is how we succeeded in freeing ourselves mentally. That became the basis for our freedom, because the purpose why we want to be free is to go back to this tradition. So the traditions become the command. So the going for freedom is actually because we want to go back to the tradition or the culture. We want to go back to who we are. So the command of IPOB, both in the corporate side and in the natural side, means the same thing. IPOB in the natural side is run by the culture and tradition of the people. And this culture and tradition of the people was truncated when we were engrafted into Nigeria by the amalgamation of 1914. As soon as we were engrafted into Nigeria by the amalgamation of 1914, our culture and traditions were subjected to slavery, to torture, to restrictions. We lost our sovereignty. Whenever you lose your sovereignty, you cannot express your culture and tradition. You will only embrace the culture and the traditions of the slave masters. Because whoever controls you has power over you. Whoever controls you uses their command to control you. So the British command became the commandment for the control of Biafra. Our sovereignty, our culture, our traditions, which are sources of our sovereignty, and our command and our commandment were suspended. So no matter how you think that you have your traditions and rules or culture, you cannot express them effectively as a sovereign nation unless you are free. That was why the IPOB corporate side was instituted. IPOB corporate side is not a different body from IPOB the natural. Remember, IPOB means, first understand the meaning of IPOB. So you don't just say IPOB, because when people say IPOB, they misinterpret the whole concept. They lose what it means. They lost it, because that IPOB, those initials, make them just forget what it actually means. Indigenous people of Biafra. Indigens. So naturally, we're indigents. But to seek for our freedom, we now instituted the corporate side of our indigenous aspect of Biafra, of being Biafrans. We now instituted that aspect of utilizing a corporate means to bring back that our sovereignty to our natural side, so that we can express our cultures and traditions the way we're supposed to express them. That is how IPOB became composed. That is how IPOB, the corporate side, got its command. The command of the corporate side uses the concept of the culture and traditions, because the purpose of the command is to restore the traditions and culture of the natural side of IPOB. So when you want to talk about the command, which in the corporate side is represented by the office or the tissue called DOS. Mazi Nnamdi Kanu is that tissue. We all belong to other aspects of tissues that make up the organ, which means that make up the nation. The organ is constituted by tissues. The central tissue is the DOS. That means the central command and control aspect or command point is the DOS, just like what White House is to the United States. Just like what the president is to the United States. The office of the president, which is a tissue, or the central tissue, or the government of the United States, which is a central tissue to other tissues, all the companies, all the group, the NGOs, all the corporations, or whatever it is, whatever thing. If you go to the United States today and you were able to start a business and all of that, everything there is a tissue, because you are only functioning to make sure that the state continues, to make sure that the organ, which is the nation of, or the state of the United States, functions as a sovereign, nation or state, or in that sovereignty, that level of power. Everything you do, the companies you open, the services you are rendering, where you are working in the United States, or working under a company, working under an institution, an agency, or wherever you're working, you are working in a tissue that its service or its services helps to sustain the United States, which is the organ. So the United States as an organ is sustained by your own action, you that is working in a company. That company produces money, or yes, creates or gets profit and money. It pays taxes. Those taxes sustain the power and the sovereignty of the United States. The same way also, every one of us as Biafrans, everything we do, those of us who support ESN, which is also a tissue, because you as an entity, you are a cell. belonging to a group, maybe a group of 1,000 people who are, supporting ESN, the 1,000 group, or the group of 10 or 50 people who are supporting for 10,000, or the group of people who are in the media, or the group of people who are designing and constructing, very vital issues, or that has to do with development and programs that will effectively build Biafra, or a group of people that are, who are, even musicians, those who are singing, to use their songs as a means of speaking to authority, or those people who are in their own corners tweeting, whatever you are doing. As much as you are in that corner, if you are on Twitter, you are in a tissue, a central point that your contribution is helping the nation. So Mazi Nnamdi Kanu now, being the central tissue, just like what White House and the President, Joe Biden, is to the United States, the same Mazi Nnamdi Kanu is, as represented here, the DOS. Every other person working under the office of the DOS are officers of the DOS. They are not the DOS. They are officers or members of the DOS. They are employed to enforce the command, which is the DOS. Mazi Nnamdi Kanu is the representation on an epitome of the DOS. The DOS is actually the command. That means the rules, the principles that guides the mission to restore our culture and traditions. So Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, being the DOS, employs people just like the President of the United States employs and appoints people who will execute or help to execute these commands based on what the principles are. And of course, obviously, with our senses and with everything that we are, you and I can testify that every one of those people who were working under the office, remember, some other people have worked there and they have been removed by Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. In fact, when he got back in 2017, he actually sacked many of them, including Uche, who has been sacked also because he was going against the command. No member of the DOS or an officer in the DOS is the DOS. You should understand this. They are enforcers of the command. Their job is to make sure they enforce. When they enforce, it stipulates or it helps to sustain control. So you must understand the difference between command and control. Command is the rule, the principle, everything that makes up the organ, which the people represent. That is the culture, the tradition, and everything. When it comes to the central point or the corporate side of Biafra now, or the corporate side of IPOB, the command is the rules and principles or the ideology that stems from the natural side, which is the culture and traditions. The command that stems from that is pointing to the fact of restoring sovereignty to Biafra so that we can go back to the point of sovereignty where we can now utilize or function in our cultures, in our culture and traditions. That is what command and control means. So you must understand, IPOB has two sides connected to a central point. The root point is Biafra, which represents the culture and traditions. That is why Mazi Nnamdi Kanu will say, to know the territory of Biafra, you must look at those places where women tie two-piece wrapper. Anyone who types that's a culture. Talking about cultural traditions. We have similar, four market days. We have almost similar languages. We have them almost similar in religion. The way of behavior, culture, practice, and everything is the same. That is the command. Biafra has a command. The command is the culture and tradition. The command is not somebody speaking and saying something and telling us what we must do, whether we like it or not. That is not command. Command is a word from commandment. It means to command the commandment. That means enforce the commandment. Because the commandment is the noun, which is the rules, the principles, the laws. Command is the application of the commandment. That means the verb, which is the action part now, to apply them. When you apply them, you are bringing control to the sphere of the people. So, which means that the word control is not basically having a defined meaning, except you understand what the command is. So anytime a control or an action is carried out that goes against the command, it is actually contrary to the foundational process of the nation. So the reason why these people were sacked from serving or from executing the command is because they faulted the command by refusing to execute the command. They now brought confusion rather than control. But they misunderstand this to think that command and control means when they say something, you obey it and do it like a zombie. But they don't understand that command and control simply means that command represents the nation and what the people have stipulated as their culture and tradition. Then the control is the process of executing these commands or these traditions and culture based on precepts or based on what you want to achieve. And by so applying, you now instill a command process, a control process that helps to harmonize everything in line with the command. So since Mazi Nnamdi Kanu now is the epitome of the command, that means he represents, the icon, he's like the app. He's like the application, the app. When you click him, you will see the rules, the culture, and everything. That was why he was preaching to us. He was telling us about Biafra. He was telling us about who we are. He was telling us about our freedom. He was telling us to stand and be strong. He even went far to say, anytime he goes against this command, we should kill him. He went as far as that to say that. Anytime he goes beyond this command, we should kill him. So you see. So I think I will stop here because the video is becoming long. Maybe next time I have another opportunity to speak, I'm going to throw more light on these and expatiate better from this point. It's already 1 minute. 1 hour 30 minutes or 1 hour 40 minutes almost. I want you to please share this video far and wide. Let the people begin to understand so that you don't begin to waste your time arguing with people who are ignorant about what command and control means. To understand command and control, you must understand IPOB. And they understand what DOS is in IPOB. DOS is only a central tissue where the command is expressed. The person who is the DOS is Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, but he has officers working under him. Mazi Nnamdi Kanu is like the app. When you click on the app, you see the information. That means the culture, the tradition. These are the things he was teaching us, pouring to us, telling us. So when you click the app, which he is, that is that app called DOS, which is Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, you will now see this information. Those people who are in the office, who are told to operate the system and click that app, are supposed to utilize the information in that app to make sure that things are under control. But when they clicked the app and the app gave them information, one of the information was, let Simon Ekpa take a slot. Let the monies on Radio Biafra, let the monies on those accounts be sent to the central Umori account. And all those information were not obeyed. Now, one other information is that the people won't sit at home. Remember, the culture tradition represents the people. Whatever the people want is what you execute. If you observe Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, anything the people want is what becomes his driving force. Because it is the voice of the people that is a representation of the culture and traditions. But check it out from who is sacked, because they have exuded to themselves the power of command and control in a wrong notion and in a wrong understanding. They think that they can just do anything outside the command, outside what the people represent, and then expect you to just flow into it. That is why the most stupid and foolish people, who, I'm not talking about those who have sold Mazi Nnamdi Kanu now, those ones are already condemned. Those ones in the system. The most stupid and foolish people are those people who have been misled by these people who are in this position of so-called who have designed to themselves what command means, and who are now dishing out rules and whatever they want in their own way. The most stupid and foolish people are these people who are ignorant and following them. That is why I'm teaching this, so that they will learn. Because if you are following them, you are only an e-frog. I call you an e-frog because you know why? Frogs cannot destroy, but they hop from one place to the other, making irritating noise. You keep making irritating noise because the more you make the noise, the more we see how ignorant you are. If you call it errats, we are giving you a class because you can enter into the wardrobe and destroy documents and destroy anything. You can't destroy what the autopilot is doing, so you are an e-frog. So you must correct your ways, you must retrace your steps so that you don't get yourself into this continuous mess. That is why I am preaching this. So please share this video far and wide. Let the people, let this matter be settled once and for all. So when they talk about DOS, when they talk about IPOB, when they talk about command and control, you know what to tell them. They have to understand these principles so that they will be able to understand what it means to be under command and control. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining me. Please share this video far and wide. My name is Kelechi Ambrose, and this is Biafra Global Network. Please click the subscribe button, and so that you can receive notification of more videos, and so that you can support this channel and all of that for more updates, for more teachings, and for more information. We are going to be bringing them live to you from here so that you can always join us, and also to to do what we have to do. Remember, tomorrow is sit at home. Tomorrow is a sit at home. Please don't feel wherever you are. Tomorrow, Monday, and Tuesday, sit at home. Our leader is going to court on Tuesday, 13th of September. We must sit at home. Your people must sit at home. Remember, look at those chains in his hands. Look at those chains in his hands behind me. Those chains must be broken. And your sit at home is a weapon to break those chains. To break those chains. That chain that is chaining our leader. Your sit at home will help also to destroy those chains. That is why you must do your part. Play your part and allow the rest to be handled by God. We play our role and we leave the rest to God. Don't say that, don't begin to look at your belly. You are not a belly infrastructure person. You must think of your nation, and your nation would make you survive. Because when your nation is restored, you will also be survived. You will also survive. So please, let's join in and enforce this sit at home Monday and Tuesday. And please remember, this is a preparation to the lockdown, to total lockdown, and no election in Biafra land. We're going to be sitting at home for, if it takes up to 2 weeks, we're going to do that. We're going to sit at home and no movement, because we want that nation to be back so that we can go back to our traditions and culture. Remember, when I started this video, I played Mazi Nnamdi Kanu in the court, the other time, and I'm going to play it again to close this, to close this broadcast, so that you will see him again in court as BBC, of course, Igbo video the other time. So I'm going to play it so that you will see him, so to remind you that we actually have to be free, and DOS, which is bound, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, which is bound, must be free, and he must come out and be part of this. Thank you so much for joining me, and I want to appreciate every one of you right here as we go on in this. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining me. Please share this video. Share to all your social media platforms. Share to your friends, to your enemies, to those who have to hear this, to those who have to know, who need to get this information, to those who have to be part of this. Share this to them so that they can know what DOS actually means, and they can understand what command and control means. So please share this information. This is our leader, and in court in June and 28th, and we are expecting him on Tuesday, and there will be total lockdown in Biafra land. Thank you so much for being part of this, and I appreciate you so much. My name is Kelechi Ambrose. This is Biafra Global Network, and I want to see you play your part as we all play our parts. Please ignore the issue of our leader's wife. That is not an issue for us to begin to drag ourselves unnecessarily. And she has made her opinion. She's a person. She has made her opinion. Our focus is to restore Biafra and to bring our leader out. Our leader will handle that issue because it has to do with his wife. And so please don't get yourself jumping from one place to the other, commenting and making unnecessary comments and insults and all of that. You don't gain anything by that. You only gain something by constructive result. When you have result, you actually can push and present, your case rightly. When you have result, you naturally become obvious and conspicuous to the people. So don't think that you make a point by talking anyhow or by trying to defend. Don't be reactional. Always be constructive in everything. Don't be moved by emotion. Don't be by emotion. You want to move, you want to talk, you want to say something. No, you don't need that. Don't be dragged by emotion. Be dragged by constructive reasoning. That is what Mazi Nnamdi Kanu represents. He doesn't react anyhow. He reacts to things that are important, and this is not important. Remember that broadcast was made in a family meeting. They have been sacked. They just had their own meeting. They have the right to hold their meeting and say anything they have to say. But we know what we are pursuing. We know what we want to achieve. Our leader must be free, and all of us must be free. And that is what we represent. So thank you so much for being part of this, and I love you. And I love you, and I hope to see you in Biafra. Please be careful. Make sure you don't go to places that will harm you. Make sure you don't get to places where you'll be attacked or something will happen to you. Make sure you don't get yourself into trouble. Make sure you don't get yourself into a situation that will mess you up. Make sure that you don't get yourself into situations that would compromise your brother or endanger your brother. Don't go and sell your brother because of money, because you want to get money. Please stop the sabotaging of freedom. Your freedom is important to you and your children. Thank you so much. I love you, and keep the fight going on and keep what you're doing as we go together.